Good afternoon, everybody. This is the Public Works Committee of the Metropolitan Council on Tuesday, August 17th at 4:15. Present is Nash, Allen, Benedict, Bradford, Gamble, Hurt, O'Connell. That gives us a quorum.
Rosen Young will be absent.
Okay. I do have a consent agenda. We have potentially a long agenda, so we'll figure, see what happens. I started out with RS 2021-1103, Cash, O'Connell, Taylor, James, Murphy, Nash. Approves an intergovernmental agreement between the Tennessee Department of Transportation and Metro Department of Public Works for traffic signal communication upgrades along Broadway and West End from First Avenue to I-440. Can't think of a better place. Resolution RS 2021-1104, O'Connell, Taylor, Murphy, Toombs, and Nash. Approves an intergovernmental agreement between the Tennessee Department of Transportation and the Metro Department of Transportation and Intermodal Infrastructure for Charlotte Avenue / Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard Transit Headways and Congestion Management Project.
This was deferred in budget, so we'll probably want to defer it here also.
It was deferred in planning as well.
Okay, I'm going to take that off consent. 1104. Moving to page 4, BL 2021-845, Syracuse, Toombs, and Nash. Approves the third amendment to an agreement between the Metro Government of Nashville, Davidson County, and the HDR Engineering Incorporated, who is contracted to do some design services along Lebanon Road. BL 2021-846, Taylor, Murphy, Nash, and O'Connell abandons a portion of Booker Street right-of-way and easement along the south property line of 745 23rd North Court. BL 2021-847, Van Reese, Murphy, Nash, and O'Connell abandons Baxter Street right-of-way between Hart Lane and Home Road. BL 2021-848, Cash, Murphy, Nash, and O'Connell abandons a portion of 14th Avenue South and alley number 393, right-of-way and easement between Wedgwood Avenue and Ackland Avenue. Bill number 2021-849, Sledge, Murphy, Nash, and O'Connell abandons a portion of alley number 403, right-of-way from 8th Avenue South to alley number 404. And we have a letter approved by Councilmember Sledge. Bill number 2021-850 accepts new sanitary sewer mains, sanitary sewer manholes, and easements for 3 properties located at 750 and 754 Knowlesville Road. Knowlesville Road unnumbered in Williamson County. Page 6, Bill number 2021-851 accepts new public water, sanitary sewer mains, fire hydrant assembly, sanitary sewer manholes, and easements for property located at Hobson Pike unnumbered, also known as Hobson Pike Townhomes Phase 1. And Phase 2 in Bill 2021-852 Stiles, Murphy, and Nash accepts new sanitary sewer water mains, sanitary sewer manholes, fire hydrant assemblies, and easements for property located at Hobson Pike unnumbered, also known as Hobson Pike Townhomes Phase number 2. Do any of those need to come off the consent agenda? Going once, going twice, going 3 times. All those in favor of the consent agenda, vote saying aye.
Aye.
And like sign, and I, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 4, 0 again. Okay. At the top of the agenda on page 1, resolutions, RS 2021-1030, Nash and Allen, approves a solid waste regional plan for Davidson County, Tennessee. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Discussion. We're all convinced this is a good thing to get us started down that direction. And yes, going once, going twice. All those in favor, vote saying aye.
Aye.
And those against? Any non-voting? On to page 2, top of the page, RS 2021-1102, Allen, Mendez, Hager, and Murphy, calls for the Nashville Department of Transportation and Modal Infrastructure, the Greenways and Open Space Commission, and the Metro Legal Department to solicit community input and gather data from other cities regarding the authorization of electric bikes on Metro Greenways and to request a moratorium on any council legislation related to electric bicycles on greenways until community input and data can be collected.
Second. Moved in second.
Council
amendment.
member, and then we have an amendment by Murphy and Syracuse. We don't have either here.
Anyone on the committee can move the amendment, but no one has to.
Now, for phases of discussion, I'll go ahead and move motion for the.
All right, we have a motion to move the amendment.
Second.
Second. All right, who can explain the amendment there? Let me get that in the chat.
I'm happy to explain.
Okay.
So this changes two of the recitals in this resolution to remove references to no known problems or incidents with e-bikes. So currently, the recitals read that, the e-bike community in Nashville has been riding on the greenways with no known incidents or problems. The with no known incidents or problems would be deleted from two different recitals, and then also there'd be a language change that talks about how this resolution is to determine whether it's appropriate to limit the use of e-bikes in Nashville beyond existing state law. That language would change to limit the use of e-bikes in metro parks as permitted under existing state law. Just language change.
Any other discussion on the amendment?
I will
Yes.
speak to that. I was part of a meeting to talk about the changes that have happened that have made us want to stop and pause things and gather some data before we make any kind of decisions about this. And there were several viewpoints represented at that meeting, and the original legislation was derived by incorporating those viewpoints. I have concerns that making these changes will make this a much more contentious bill than it needs to be. Regardless, I think it's very important that we do set a long enough moratorium on any kind of legislation so that we can gather data in a calm and objective way. And I would prefer not to create controversy, although it's important to discuss this and to get everybody comfortable with it. Cindy has sent me information on the just recent tension between bikes and pedestrians. There's no question that there's tension, but in terms of whether it's bikes in general and specifically rude bike riders and fast bike riders and e-bikes, I think we need time to gather that data. I haven't seen yet the data, and there may be an email that shows me that. But currently what I have seen is not documentation of e-bikes, it's documentation of bad bike riders, and we absolutely need to address that. So I'm not comfortable with that amendment and I will not be voting for it, and would just request people to think carefully about whether it's worth creating controversy by messing with recitals.
I think I was first on that.
Cheers.
I liked the first amendment in that if you're going to have a study, you shouldn't presume that there's no problem. And I think that amendment corrects that. So I'm not sure I see an issue with it. Councilor Benedict.
Thank you, Chair. So this is something that was brought to my attention some time back and by one of my constituents who's very involved in. My parents actually have e-bikes. They're in their 70s, and they added a motor onto their bicycle years ago, and it helps them get up that extra hill. They don't ride it to go however fast they may be able to go. My experience in being in the parks is similar in that when I've seen e-bikes on our greenways, I've not seen people going at excessive speeds any further than anyone on a bicycle going excessive speeds. At one point, I'm trying to pull it up right now, I'm sorry I didn't have it ready for this committee, but at one point I asked Director Odom if this was something that we had any data in regards to violations. I do recall, I'm looking at it right here, do we have any information about citations for e-bikes and for speeding over 15 miles per hour? And there was not any at that time. So I think that speaks to the need that we don't know if there's incidents or problems. However, I don't think that there's a need, so therefore I don't think that there's a need for this resolution, I'm sorry, for this amendment to go through. I think that the other thing is about to my colleague's point in regards to creating controversy here, I think let's take a look at it holistically. Let's look at it the way that the resolution is written. Let's evaluate if in fact this is a problem. I'm sorry, if in fact this, anyway, I'm not going to support the amendment. I do think that this is something we need to look at. I think that, again, my experience with e-bikes is that it's that to get that oomph up the hill, not so much that somebody's riding a moped or a motorcycle on our greenways endangering pedestrians. And that's what I see also throughout my district in the bike lanes that we have as well. Thank you,
Mr.
Chair.
O'Connell, you're on deck. I got to get committee members first.
Thank you, Chair. I may be too late in regards to discussing, is that what you're talking about?
We're on your amendment.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'll defer to Mr. Sirkis.
So I co-sponsored the amendment. The whole idea is that with this resolution, we're wanting to bring people together and talk about this. So let's keep it an objective resolution that we can bring folks together and discuss this without making any sort of assumptions. So that's it. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I guess to the point of how the vehicles in question here work, right? I mean, we have a variety of devices that could or might not be able to be used on greenways. Right now, right, there's sort of the distinction between motorized and throttled, right? And so B-Cycle, for instance, has just relaunched in Nashville with what are known as Class 1 pedal assist e-bikes, right? These are bikes that, to Councilmember Benedict's point, just help you get up hills. They don't work like a motorcycle. You can't just like kick into gear and rev up and go zoom off. Now, there are other classes of e-bikes, Class 2 and Class 3. I think, my hope and expectation would be that if and when this resolution passes and the period of moratorium is in effect, that, we really are going out and evaluating this and looking at safety, because I know I have heard from multiple people who are, buzzed by gear-laden road warrior cyclists, and meanwhile, others who want to just go across the pedestrian bridge on a scooter, right, which is currently a greenway, and so that is right now prohibited activity, and so I think it's good to look at the entire context, who wants to use the greenways, who is using the greenways, what we have available in terms of thinking of them as mobility corridors. And I think that's the interesting thing here is this is both a recreational asset that is a part of parks, but it is also a mobility asset that is a part of our transportation infrastructure. So we just need to be mindful of that.
Councilmember Gamble?
Thank you, Chair. I applaud the sponsor for bringing forth this resolution. I think it's great that we are encouraging more community input and getting that data before making legislative decisions. I'm not sure how the amendment, though, would cause controversy, because it seems like, and agreeing with Councilmember Syracuse, that we want to put this forth, but we want to make it as objective as possible, not insinuating anything. So if there is anything else you can add, or someone can add as to why you think the amendment may cause controversy. I think that's Councilmember Allen, because he didn't think it would.
Only because I've heard from other council members who apparently are not in this meeting to raise issues. So I'm willing to have this discussion again. I mean, I agree that we don't have the data. That's why we need the moratorium. And I would like for that moratorium to begin right now and the data gathering to begin as soon as possible. If someone, for example, decided they wanted to defer this because they didn't like those amendments, I hope that this group would not support a deferral.
And is the concern on the First Amendment that takes out the language?
It's all one amendment.
Oh, okay. I guess the first change that takes
Right.
out the, there haven't been any incidents, which is always better, just not, that's like saying all instead of some.
Right, and I think the language is no known incidents.
No known
No
incidents.
known incidents or problems.
And you would just take that out and
That
just,
would be, yeah.
so is that's the concern, not the other
That is the
change?
concern of some other council members.
If I may, Chair, I found the response here from Director Odom from June, if I may.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Emily, we're not actively patrolling the greenways for rule breakers due to lack of staff capacity. We have frequent complaints about a specific issue. If we have frequent complaints about a specific issue, we do request additional patrols. parenthetically Parks Police, where those issues are happening. The most frequent complaints that we receive are regarding cyclists speeding, not yielding the right-of-way to pedestrians, and not using proper trail etiquette. This seems to occur most often on the Stones River Greenway and the Shelby Bottoms Greenway. Shelby Bottoms, which is a part of my district or touches my district. So to that end, that I don't want to walk in and assume that there's not incidents or problems, but that there are incidents or problems. I think we need to look at this as objectively as possible, and we don't know that they're there. I think we need to look at it as though it is a part of our transit infrastructure, and that's what we've envisioned. That's what we do to help promote getting around the city with all these greenways that we hope are connected at some point.
And I don't know that Councilmember Syracuse's amendment changes that. I mean, I thought that was his, I don't think he's against doing the study, and just wanted to make sure that it was maybe a little more objective, for whatever it's worth. Any more discussion? On the amendment, all those in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Saying aye? Aye. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Chair, I'm not voting. I wasn't here for the discussion. so
5,
thank you.
4, and those against, say aye.
No?
2 against the amendment. Okay. On to the bill.
Move approval as amended.
Second.
And any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And I'm going to make that 7-4 and 0 against. And we have 2 more members present. We'll move forward here. Resolution 2021-1104, O'Connell, Taylor, Murphy, Toombs, and Nash. Approves an intergovernmental government agreement between the Tennessee Department of Transportation and Metro Department of Transportation Intermodal Infrastructure for Charlotte Avenue, Dr. Martin Luther King
Can you say this
Boulevard,
is deferred?
Transit Headways, and Congestion Management Project.
Yeah, deferred for one.
We have a
Move to defer.
motion to defer one meeting. Second.
Or 11.
Second.
Okay, sorry.
Any discussion on the deferral?
Mr. Chair, I will just note, Councilmember Murphy had wanted to be briefed since this went through her district, so I think she just wanted some time to get information about the proposal. I think that's.
Can you speak up, Council?
Sure, sorry, Councilmember. Councilmember Murphy had just had some questions about the proposal since it goes, as part of that alignment, it goes through her district. So I think she just wanted to defer to get information.
So, any more discussion on deferral? Seeing none, all those in favor, vote saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. All right, so that's 9-4-0 against. On to bills in second reading. Bill number 2020-582, Jasper Nash, Rutherford, Murphy, Style, Hughes, Gamble, Young, Hancock, Druffel, Hall, Withers, Hauser, and Cash. Amends the Metro Code laws pertaining to the use of license plate scanner technology in the public rights of ways, and note here deferred pursuant to Rule 43. It's automatically deferred since it's been brought back from an indefinite deferral. Moving on to Bill 2021-835, Hall, Evans, Hager, Hauser, Swope, Toombs, Hurt, Miller, Schwartz, and Porterfield. Deferred requires the Metro Water and Sewage Services to study sewer infrastructure in Nashville and Davidson County to provide a report to the Metro Council by July 1st, 2023. Do I have a motion? Second. Council Lady Evans, Councilmember Hall is not here. Do you want to speak to this?
No, only because I don't have any of my notes with me.
Okay. Anybody, former Councilmember Jamison?
Chairman Nash, thank you for that. We've had good discussion with Councilman Hall. His intent is to defer this one meeting, and we're scheduled for a meeting with him and Metro Water Services staff on September 2nd, I believe.
Move for deferral. Second.
Motion to defer one meeting and seconded. Any discussion on the deferral? Seeing Seeing none, all those in favor of deferring one meeting?
Aye.
Those opposed? Nine for deferral, 0 against. On to Bill 2021-841, Rosenberg, Mendez, Juarez, Holt, and others. Amends the Metro Code laws pertaining to the use of license plate scanner LPR technology in the public rights of way, and we have a proposed amendment by Councilmember Allen. We have a motion to approve.
Do you want to do the amendment first?
Then I'll move the amendment. You have to move the bill first.
I think we have to move the bill first. Okay, and you want to...
Now I'll move the amendment.
Second.
You want to speak to your amendment?
Yeah, yes, this does three things. A key one is that it sort of keeps the traffic and parking piece of it separate from some of the triggers that would rescind the ability to use license plate scanners, so that if some of the triggers that are related to law enforcement kick in and say we're not going to do this anymore, it wouldn't necessarily say that, and therefore we're not going to use it for traffic and parking issues. So it adds a separate section, H, I believe, that keeps those two functions under different evaluation criteria. Secondly, it refines some of the language around images to still say that the purpose of the cameras is to record license numbers, not images, but to keep us from kicking out a vendor if there is a possibility that it will occasionally catch images. But still to be clear that that's not the point and not what we want to do with them. And then finally, there's a reference to council having the ability to review some of the data, and that gives council a function that we have not had with regard to oversight in any other function. So it continues to allow the public defender and the DA and the community oversight board to have that oversight, which are entities that with specifically the COB entities that we've provided representation on. So those are the three changes that we would make.
Any discussion, questions on the amendment? Councilor Henderson?
I would just ask Councilor Allen and Councilman Rosenberg, is this a friendly amendment?
Yes, it is, and I would add that it also adds an additional use for the LPRs, which is in the case of probable cause for a felony offense, even if the suspect hasn't been identified, for them to be able to get a warrant. But yes, it is a friendly amendment. I appreciate Councilmember Allen working on it.
Anything further? On the amendment, all those in favor, vote saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. On the bill, Councilman Rosenberg, do you want to?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this bill brings back the LPR conversation that got paused 4 months ago, and tries to take a something for everybody approach. Some of the concerns that we faced, with earlier proposals to limit LPRs were about 3-minute retention time, which has been extended 24 hours to give enough time to get those images. And of course, since we're talking mobile LPRs, nobody's going to need to go find a camera on a pole or anything to get the information. That'll be accessible. As mentioned on the amendment, it expands the uses a little bit. It also creates some triggers for council review. 90 days out, if we get preempted by the legislature on certain regulations about it. Overall, we're talking about going from no LPRs at all, and it makes sense to have a true pilot to figure out what we're going to do, and if the council in the future decides that it wants to go further with them, at least it'll be with the data, because this will require reporting from MNPD within 6 months so that we have an idea of what's going on. I'm certain that MNPD would like much wider use and options with this. That's their job. But from a policy perspective, I think it's important that if we're going to step into this arena, that we do it very carefully, deliberately, and that's what this bill seeks to do. I'll add that while there's going to be an attempt to bring 582 back, it's out of deferrals, which is going to be very limiting in that conversation. So this might be a more appropriate vehicle for considering LPRs going forward. So thank you very much.
Any discussion by committee members? Councilor Gamble?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And looking at the legislation, I appreciate you all bringing this forward, considering all of the work and discussions that have been put forth in 582. Question about your, the timing, the 24-hour, you said it went from 3 minutes to 24 hours. If we can hear from Commander Gilder on how that would impact the use of the readers, because in previous discussions, we've discussed how the shorter time that the images are available, the less useful it is in trying to solve crimes that aren't identified until a day or two later. So if you could speak to the relevance of that, and then if the sponsor could speak to how this expands the use beyond what we're already doing besides the parking and traffic aspect.
Yes, ma'am, happy to. I appreciate the sponsors' willingness to expand the timeline. I think probably the two major limiting factors here that limit the real usefulness from a public safety perspective for us is one, that it's limited to those installed in police vehicles. On patrol, depending on time of day, of course, the resources go up and down, but you may only have 40 to 50 patrol vehicles in the entire county driving around that potentially could be outfitted with an LPR. Again, that requires the officer to be there at the right place at the right time for that scan to take place. And quite frankly, if they observed it, they probably observed it, and the LPR isn't going to change that, other than, maybe if they flee and we might get some identifying information there that if the officer didn't catch the tag. But I think that's the primary limiting concern for us is that. And then, as you noted with LPRs, I think that really what we're focused on from a public safety perspective is addressing violent crime. And they are particularly helpful in identifying suspects when you have to go back and you have to look for that information. And when you have a limitation like a 24-hour period, which seems like a pretty long period of time, but it's not unusual for crimes not to come to light, even people not report crimes. Just the other day, we had a body that was dumped on 35th Avenue North. Could have spent days there had a public works employee not located because it was kind of off the beaten path. And it would be very hard to know that suspect vehicle passed right by an LPR and it got automatically purged, even if we had a fixed system, which of course this bill doesn't allow, to know that you had it but you can't use it. So that's the primary concerns for us from a public safety perspective.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Councilor
Well,
Hempstead?
I had a second part to the
Please,
question.
Steph, follow up. Yep.
Should I repeat it?
I'm sorry, yes, please.
Okay. The second part was how the.
Oh, no, I remember, yeah.
Okay.
Right now, my understanding is mobile LPRs aren't used at all. We've got no policies around them, nothing is being used at all. This will create some guidelines around them and some certainty and some opportunity also for us to see how they're being used, get the reports, and ensure that there are policies around it. I mean, it's not a good idea to have them out there with no policies at all surrounding them.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's suggesting that, but I just wondered how was this.
No, that's what it does.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Connell, do you?
Yeah, I think again, for me, and I appreciate everybody who's participated in this, right? I think the conversation we've been through that's been going on for months has really been pretty illuminating. I'm grateful to Councilmember Allen for a thoughtful amendment and the engagement of a bunch of stakeholders in various parts of the community. I think for me, in considering this issue as a whole, we want to do whatever we can to support a contextual use case for limiting violent crime. Meanwhile, I think for those of us who represent communities in particular where people have felt like surveillance becomes, a furtherance of a, hey, everybody is a suspect kind of frame, I think this lets us go to, there are contexts where violent crimes are occurring. We can use this technology in temporary, very specific contexts to fight that crime. and we can look at the impact of the community this goes on. So I think Councilmember Rosenberg didn't just go back and kind of retread his original approach. I think he really did listen to the concerns of colleagues and people in the community. And I think this approach really does represent our best immediate step forward. So I do intend to support this.
The chair, I do applaud the attempt to make it a little less restrictive. But that said, I find this bill still overly restrictive in allowing the police department to use this. If we're not going to provide the ability to use this in its most effective means, I don't care how much reporting you do about it, you're just reporting on nothing at the end of the day. And to the everybody being a suspect, this is just the opposite to me, because it is looking at a license plate that has already been registered as being involved in some way where the police need to come, hopefully stop that vehicle and find out who's got it, whether it be an Amber Alert vehicle or a stolen car or a murder suspect. It's very focused. It's not everybody. It's focused on that particular license plate and what it's attached to. I have found that so much the rhetoric around this issue to be somewhat akin to the NRA. Anytime anybody raises just a common sense kind of gun regulation, oh my God, they're going to be coming to my house and taking my guns. And now, because we're talking about focusing on a license plate, oh my gosh, it's surveillance. They're going to be in your front door any minute now with cameras. And it's just not the case. I think we've taken this a little too far. I think there's a common sense middle ground, and I think 582 is it. I would like to see this deferred at least until the next meeting so we can just have this discussion with both the bills on the table, and hopefully that meeting we could just put an end to both of these bills one way or the other.
Second.
I have a motion to defer and a second discussion on motion to defer.
I think it's going to be clear one way or the other. It doesn't really matter having them at the same time. I mean, we'll know from the support. I'm not in favor of a deferral. I think this bill, considering it as, we know where the sponsors are, we know where some of the support is, and I think we ought to give it a chance to succeed or fail on the floor.
Good night.
Well, I'd like the deferral and to be able to do it together, because I think that this bill has its merits just as 582 has its merits. And when you have them both there, I think at that moment in time, it will give us a better opportunity to evaluate and assess which one very well may meet the needs of the total concerns that we all have, because we do have to have some type of balance. We know that crime needs to be addressed in some way, and we don't want to use it as a surveillance tool to, so we have to come up with something. And I think if we can see it measured together, then it will give us a better opportunity to come up and do and give an educated and a much better vote.
Any other? Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. So I also am against I'm like my colleague, Councilmember O'Connell, I am against the deferral. I think at this point, we based on the number of sponsors on both of the bills, on 582 and on this bill, I think that we know where things are. I think we should go ahead and I would recommend on the floor of the body that we decide to proceed or not. I think that at this point, this bill really does thread the needle. This bill adds much of what the feedback was from the body in the prior discussion, and I think that this certainly will give the police department additional tools, it sounds like to me, based on the support that I think I heard a few minutes ago, that this is something that would be supported by the department, and that it would be beneficial that, we find as a council that, again, that this is not something we should put off, but rather we should go ahead and consider tonight. So I'm going to be against the deferral, and
Respectfully, I don't know that I heard the department say.
I didn't hear that either.
Well, we have 15 on 582 and 10 on 841. So that means we have 25 that's still not determined. So to me, that's enough for us to make the determination for us to have further discussion together and not give people an opportunity, because there's 25 that need to make up their mind, including me.
Council Lady Evans?
I'd just like to know if the sponsor would like to defer or not.
Thank you. I would like to see, whatever happens on the floor, I'd like to see this not get deferred in committee, because if we do, then there's no opportunity for anybody to ask any questions from legal counsel or discuss it at all on the floor. The other bill can't be discussed by rule on the floor. So a deferral in committee will short circuit any opportunity to answer questions. So there's always an opportunity to defer it on the floor if people see fit, but no, I'm not. Thank you.
Further discussion on the deferral? Seeing none, all those.
Chair,
I'm sorry?
I just wanted to add that since 582 has not been relooked at for several months, I think it would be only prudent to have the bills track at the same time so that we can compare, because I think I've heard some things about this bill 841 that are exactly in 582. So I'm not sure, there's this suggestion that 841 has so many more restrictions. I think it does limit the use quite a bit more than 582, but as far as restrictions and things that have been in place, 582 actually passed more restrictions and reporting requirements than 841. So I too agree that the fact that we can't discuss 582 on the floor because of the rule, it makes it an unbalanced discussion, and we should defer this bill so that we can have the discussion at the same time.
On the subject of deferral, can I ask Ms. Zeitlin just procedurally? So 582 is back. It's deferred by rule, which means it will be on what reading at next meeting comparative to this bill?
So it's on second reading, so it will remain on second reading at the September 7th meeting.
This bill, obviously, in committee at this point is on its
It's on
second reading. Okay, I appreciate that. And then as to discussion, Councilman Rosenberg, you were just speaking to this evening procedurally, 582 cannot be spoken to.
Right.
But if we were, Council Lady Gamble's point, to defer both of them, then they could both be spoken to on the floor or in committee. And I mean, I don't know, I'm going to kind of defer to Council Lady Gamble and you, Chair, because I feel like because this is in Safety Committee, it's also in Public Works, it's in a lot of places, and I think it's a very complex bill and space, and we have two bills. So I'm wondering about kind of re-referrals and what's the most productive. And I kind of want to defer to Council Lady Gamble, because I know our intentions are the same, to kind of get them side by side and reassess them. But do you have any thought on that? Should this be I guess if we just defer it here in committee, Ms. Zeitlin, then it's back here in committee for discussion
Correct.
again, or we need to have it?
It doesn't need to be re-referred, it'll just stay in this committee.
Okay.
Council Lady Evans?
Thank you. So my only thought about the deferral is we've heard, had several conversations that have been public about 582. And so my thought about not deferring it tonight in this committee is specifically because if we can have an opportunity to have a floor discussion specifically about this one, get questions answered, I think it does then what Councilwoman Hurt was talking about, helps really draw the comparisons between both in anticipation of the next meeting, if it presumably could be deferred on the floor. So that's kind of my 2 cents about it, so I'm not going to vote in favor of deferral in this committee.
Okay. Anybody else on deferral? Those in favor of deferral, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
No, I'm
6.
Favor of deferral?
Yes, 6 deferral.
6.
no.
6 for, and 3 against. Those against? 1, 2, 3, okay, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you all. And that, it actually went smoothly as I thought it was. One of those zombie days.
Hannah, is there a way before the next meeting we can get
I can try to create.
I know, I'm definitely